because as I was talking to you about the randomized clinical trials, so this is the kind of hierarchy which is being followed presently. The randomized control trial, that is the number one, that is the best actually. Then comes the systematic reviews of homogeneous randomized trials, then the single large randomized trial, then systematic review of homogeneous observational studies addressing patient important outcomes, then single observational study addressing patient important outcomes, then physiologic studies such as blood pressure, cardiac output, exercise capacity, bone density and so forth, and then the unsystematic clinical observations like one case report or things like that. So this is the kind of hierarchy. You should try to, if you want to validate your paper, scientific presentation and get it published, then if it is a randomized control trial, then this is the best. And if it is unsystematic clinical observation, like a case report, you have seen something during your clinical practice, you can of course report it, but then it is in the hierarchy, it's lower down the order. Then, as I have said, the components of a paper in a broader sense, it starts with a title, which clearly describes the contents. Then the authors ensures the recognition of the writers, single or multiple. The abstract, which describes what is done, it should not be more than 250 words, ideally 150 to 200 words. The keywords, which some journals actually require, ensures the article is correctly identified in abstracting and indexing services. Then the introduction, which explains the problem. Then the methods, which explains how the data were collected. The results, which describes what was discovered during the experiment. The discussion discusses the implications of the findings. Acknowledgements ensures those who helped in the research are recognized. References ensures previously published work is recognized. And appendices, which again some journals always insist upon, provides supplemental data for the expert reader. So these are in a nutshell the components of a full scientific article. So all these are important. It's not that the author's name should not be correctly written or the keyword should be haphazardly written, because ultimately the keywords will be searched in the PubMed or Index Medicus or in the other web libraries. And through these keywords only, your whatever you have published, your experiments, your research will be available to the entire world. Now to start with the introduction. Introduction is kind of an inverted pyramid. It starts with the background and the aims. It sharply focuses and states the research objective and hypothesis to be tested. It arouses the interest in the rationale of the study. It states the lacunae in the existing literature, and it provides only pertinent references to orient the reader. It should be logical, short and arresting. Should use present tense. Define this. I am going into little details of each section of the scientific article, because these are very important and many a time missed by our postgraduate trainees during writing their thesis or writing their scientific article to be published in the peer-reviewed journals. Use present tense. Define any specialized terms or abbreviations you have used in the introduction. Be sure that readers understand the importance of the study, but do not give shocking statements. Provide extensive and historical details of other studies. Be too long, like 1 or 2 para. It should not be more than 1 or 2 para. Should not add results or conclusions in the introduction, and should not be imitative, vague, general or very critical. So it should be, in a nutshell, should give the idea of what you are going to do. Then the methods. Methods means how and what did you do. It's the most important section. It's like a recipe. All the ingredients will be put in together. It will be reproducible, detailed, balancing clarity and brevity, and reflects what you did and whether it was done properly and the purpose of doing it. Everything is written in the methods. And then how and what to write in the method section. It should answer the following questions. What you have done, had done it, like in what hospital, what were the people who had assisted you, whether the kind of bias it had given, or the blindness, it is a double blind or a single blind, all these things. When it was given the duration of the study, 1 year, 2 year, and which particular part of the year, where in which institute it was done, and how the procedure. So all these are the 5 questions it should answer in the method section, and it should always be written in the past tense because they have already done it. The introduction should be written in the present tense, but the method should be written in the past tense. In the method only, you should write a detail about the study design also, selection and description of the subjects and samples, inclusion and exclusion criteria, and randomization and blinding procedures, as I have already said. Whether it is a computer generated randomization or a kind of lottery picking small chits from a box, or whatever randomization you have done. Then how the study was carried out, details about the permission from the ethical committee and the informed consent, technical information, any new techniques you have undertaken, then you must detail those new techniques and cite the accepted techniques and procedures briefly using references. What are the accepted technique and you have done something new, something add-on to it, then you must cite the reference. Then how the data were analyzed. State the exact statistical methods used in detail. Give an estimate of the power of the study. That is very important actually, because the sample size and the power of the study would finally determine and validate your study. Because we all know that if there is something like incidence of blood pressure, high blood pressure in a particular population, that is very common. We all know that we would get a certain result. But if we try to find out the incidence of mitral regurgitation coming in for operative procedure or in the operation theatre, then obviously the number of people are less. So you will have to take a larger sample size. So it's like that, it's very logical, and there are clear-cut guidelines for that. Use the p-value to disprove the null hypothesis. You know this, avoid sole reliance on the p-value, and quantify the findings, use confidence intervals. But the common mistakes are too sketchy methods, or some of the results, conclusions or speculations are included in the methods. That should not be done ever in the methods section, and also this should not be done. It is too detailed. You are burdened or overwhelmed with so many things and so many procedural things, like then you are almost lost in your methods. It should not be like that also. Then comes the results. What did you find? The core of the paper, because that will, in most of the situations, the reader will directly go to the results. Because most of the methodology would be either obvious or they would get it from the abstract, so they will directly go to the results. So then it becomes the core of the paper. It should be crystal clear, accurate, and there should not be any redundancy. And in the results, we all know that the fool collects facts and the white selects them. So all the things, whatever has come your way during the methodology or during your experiment, should not be reflected always in the result section. Should not be written actually. You may have obtained certain things as a result, but which may not actually reflect what you have wanted to say, or which the other studies or experiments had earlier said. So you should better refrain from stating those very shocking statements or shocking kind of revelations during the study. You should plan and organize, stick to what is relevant. The text should tell the story. The tables give the evidence, and the figures illustrate the highlights. So these are the few things which during the results, you should plan and organize, stick to what is relevant. The text should tell the story. The tables give the evidence, and the figures illustrate the highlights. Results should be consistent with the objective stated in the introduction. That's what I have said. You should not tell any results which are not stated in the objectives or in the introduction. You should be wise in selecting. Be sure to include basic descriptive data. Write main or most important findings first. do not repeat in text all the data in tables or illustrations, because illustrations are meant to illustrate. So if you write again the whole thing in the text portion, then there is a duplication and kind of redundancy comes into place. All subjects should be accounted for. Make life easy for the reader. Identify subheadings. Write a logical sequence in text, tables and illustrations. Avoid percentage unless number is more than 100. Your sample size is more than 100. Avoid abbreviations and avoid appearance and disappearance of groups and results. Like here, there is a particular subgroup. You have shown it in the table. Then you don't discuss it about it altogether during your discussion. It should not be like that. The common mistakes are mismatch in the numbers in the text and tables. Very commonly it occurs. The figure 9.1 and during the writing I have written 8.1 because then the author cannot relate to the particular figure. Inclusion of results for parameters that were not mentioned in the method section. Omission of results for one or more parameters. Repetition of data in text, tables and figures, putting speculations or conclusions and references in the results. You did not, because results are your own. There should not be given any reference in the result section. Results are not to be calculated or taken from another study which was done earlier. Results are but your own only. Then comes the discussion. It's a normal pyramid now because a lot of things will be said in the discussion. The purpose of the discussion is to explain the relevance of your findings, statement of principal findings, strengths and weaknesses of the study without any bias, strengths and weaknesses in relation to other studies, meaning of the study,